guilty as charged. Stop it. Hey, let's get them out of here. The movie opens with an animated short titled Me in My Shadow, styled like a classic Looney Tunes cartoon. In this sequence, the Joker is portrayed as a famous celebrity preparing for a show. However, things take a turn when a shadow rebels, taking on Joker's persona, causing chaos, and injuring people backstage. The Shadow eventually steps on stage and performs as the real Joker. By the time Joker reclaims his identity, the police arrive and brutally beat him, mistaking him for the imposter. In the next scene, we find Arthur locked up in Arkham State Hospital, where he's been imprisoned for 2 years for his past crimes. One rainy morning, he's scheduled to meet with his lawyer. Prison guards enter his cell to wake him. "Hey Arthur, you feeling crazy today or what? Let's go." "Arthur," another guard taunts him, "got a joke for us today? It's been a while." "Huh?" Arthur replies with a deadpan delivery. A guy's dog dies. He goes to church and asks the priest to hold a funeral. As they escort Arthur, they pass a music class where a girl named Harleen Quinzel, also known as Lee, spots him. She playfully points a finger gun to her head, an odd gesture that actually makes Arthur smile. When Arthur arrives at his meeting, his lawyer, Miss Stewart, is irritated. The guards brought him in soaking wet, without an umbrella. She's frustrated but quickly shifts focus to what's important, helping Arthur. She explains that a doctor named Batty believes Arthur has developed a split personality due to severe childhood trauma. This alternate persona, the Joker, is what drove his violent actions. Dr. Batty wants to conduct a videotaped interview to determine Arthur's mental competency and ensure he receives proper treatment instead of simple incarceration. Miss Stewart reassures him, "Arthur, I'm not just here to defend you, I'm here to help you." Let's start with the first incident. The 3 men who harassed you on the subway. Do you remember them? They bullied you. Did you black out? See bright lights? And what about Murray Franklin? Do you recall anything from that night? The music? Your entrance? Your appearance as Joker? "My mom and I used to watch him," Arthur says dreamily. "He's so handsome. Look at those sparkling teeth." The interviewer asks gently, "Do you often hear her voice in your head?" "All the time," Arthur replies. "Did this other part of you, the Joker, start coming out more after she died?" Arthur nods. He and his mother had lived together in a small 1-bedroom apartment. "Would you like to talk to me?" she asks, referring to the Joker within him. In the next scene, Arthur is in the prison courtyard. A younger inmate named Ricky approaches him. "The guards say you're a good kisser," Ricky says, oddly sincere. "I want to learn." Arthur stares at him. He turns and walks toward the guards, who are laughing from a distance. Arthur's popularity among the prison staff still lingers. He doesn't get a cigarette unless he tells a joke. "No, come on," one guard says. "He still makes us laugh." The next day, Jackie, one of the staff members, takes Arthur to the music class. He is greeted warmly by the other inmates. While Jackie is distracted, Arthur finally speaks to Lee, the young woman who mimicked a gun to her head when she first saw him. "I'm Arthur," he says. Lee introduces herself and admits something shocking. She once set her parents' apartment on fire. That's why she's here. Her mother had her committed. "Knock knock," she says. "Who's there?" Arthur replies, "Sorry kid. Your dad was killed in a car accident." Then she confesses something more chilling. "The whole time I was watching, I kept thinking, I hope this guy blows his brains out. And for once in my life, I didn't feel so alone anymore." Later, Arthur is brought to a room where a news report is playing. It's announced that he's been declared mentally competent to stand trial. But Assistant District Attorney Harvey Dent holds a press conference, stating the state will seek the death penalty. He calls Arthur a monster. Meanwhile, Gotham is in chaos. Arthur's supporters continue to riot in his name, seeing him as a symbol, a martyr. Another prisoner in the room turns to him and asks, "How do you feel about all this?" Arthur, grinning, starts to sing cheerfully. "For once in my life, I have someone who needs me," a haunting expression of his joy, his delusion, and his craving for meaning and love. Later, Jackie takes Arthur to a screening of the movie The Bandwagon. Arthur sits beside Lee, who soon whispers that she wants to go outside with him. Arthur tells her it's impossible. If they left, the guards would shoot them on sight. He stays seated, watching the film, while Lee quietly slips away to the back of the theater to smoke. There, she strikes a match from her matchbox and casually tosses it. The match ignites the surroundings, and within minutes, the theater room starts to burn. Flames begin to spread unnoticed. After starting the fire, Lee calmly returns to her seat as if nothing happened. Soon, the fire draws attention. Panic erupts. The audience begins screaming and rushing toward the exits. Amidst the chaos, Arthur and Lee finally seize the moment. They kiss passionately and sneak out of the prison building. Outside, they burst into song and dance, thrilled with their brief taste of freedom. They reach the facility's entrance gate, where a swarm of reporters has already gathered to cover Arthur's story. The two climb the gate in a symbolic escape attempt, but the guards catch up quickly. They're dragged back to their cells. "You want to play games on my watch?" a guard growls. That night, Arthur dreams. In this dream, he's once again the Joker, dressed in full costume, performing under bright stage lights. Lee joins him on stage, singing a heartfelt song about her love for Arthur, creating a surreal moment of twisted romance. Later, Lee visits Arthur in his cell. She tells him that the guards allowed her in for a final goodbye. She's being discharged and sent back home. The administration believes Arthur is a bad influence on her, but Lee doesn't seem upset. She's excited, because now she'll be able to attend his trial every day. As they begin to grow closer, Lee tells Arthur she wants to be with his real self, not the man hiding behind a broken facade. She pulls a small makeup bag from her jacket, one she smuggled in, and gently paints Arthur's face with clown makeup. As his Joker persona resurfaces, they share a deep and intimate moment. A few days later, Miss Stewart arranges an interview for Arthur with a well-known television personality, Patty. She tells Arthur to speak as his true self and explain that the Joker is an alternate personality, that Arthur Fleck is not the one responsible for the crimes. "Want me to call you Arthur? Or the Joker?" Patty asks. "Just be yourself." 2 years ago, the name Arthur Fleck hit Gotham like a hurricane. He committed 5 brutal murders in just 4 weeks. Now, for the first time since that infamous night on the Murray Franklin show, the Joker is finally ready to speak. "What was going through your mind when you pulled out that gun and blew his brains out?" Patty asks. Arthur hesitates. "I was going through a lot back then. I don't really remember much from that night." Patty pushes. "You did it on live TV, pal. Doesn't get more real than that." "I thought Murray was playing a part in my show," Arthur says softly. "You get what you bleeping deserve." Patty quotes him. "That's what you said. Do you deserve to die?" "That's not who I am," Arthur insists. "That wasn't really me. So let me get this straight," she says, leaning in. "This alternate personality, this killer clown in you, killed Murray. But do you really care?" Arthur doesn't answer. "You don't," Patty says, frustrated. "You want to talk about the things that you did in the past, not about who you are now. That's what we should be talking about." Later, when the interview airs on TV, Lee is standing outside an electronics store watching through the glass. On screen, Arthur is singing directly to her. Emotion floods her face. In a moment of impulsive love and chaos, she smashes the glass, steals the television, and walks away with it in her arms. A few days later, Arthur's trial begins. He's taken to court under heavy security. Crowds jeer. "Enough is enough. This idiot doesn't deserve a trial," someone yells, laughing hysterically. Inside the courtroom, Arthur looks around for Lee. She hasn't arrived yet. The trial begins. Eventually, she enters quietly and takes a seat in the back. The prosecution opens by calling Dr. Liu, a psychiatrist who claims he interviewed Arthur for about 2 hours. He testifies that there's no evidence of multiple personality disorder. He believes Arthur has minor psychological issues, but nothing severe. According to him, Arthur fully understood what he was doing when he committed the murders, and only pretends to have another identity. When it's the defense's turn, Miss Stewart pushes back. She points out that Dr. Liu only spent 89 minutes with Arthur, nowhere near enough to properly assess deep-rooted mental disorders. She reveals that Arthur suffered horrific physical abuse as a child, abuse that likely forced him to retreat into fantasy and develop an alternate identity, one that surfaced during moments of extreme stress, like when he was assaulted on the subway by 3 drunk men. As she reads through Arthur's notebook, a woman in the courtroom blurts out, "Then I remember Sophie, OB. I had another, Mr. These are my own personal, private jokes. They weren't meant to be." "Quiet, Miss Kane," the judge interrupts. "Please continue, Miss Stewart." Miss Stewart reads about Sophie Demond, Arthur's neighbor, whom he was obsessed with. November 17th. He stabbed Randall Kimmenhofer to death and killed Murray Franklin. The notebook is filled with fantasies, imaginary relationships, disturbed thoughts, and unfunny jokes. Moments later, Miss Stewart visits Arthur privately. She tells him they can win the case, but warns him that Lee could ruin everything. Arthur responds with quiet certainty. "Lee, she's just like me." Miss Stewart later reveals a shocking truth about Lee. She doesn't come from a broken home like she claimed. In fact, she belongs to a wealthy part of the city. Her father, a well-known doctor, is alive and well. Lee had voluntarily admitted herself to Arkham Asylum and later checked out on her own terms. She never set fire to an apartment and even attended grad school to study psychiatry. All of it, the stories, the fire, the trauma, was a lie. This revelation shakes Arthur, pushing him deeper into his imaginary world. In his mind, he and Lee are once again on stage, singing a duet about their love. But this time, something feels off. Arthur sees Lee slowly turning the spotlight toward herself, and suddenly, she's pointing a gun at him. She shoots. The performance ends. Arthur is left confused, betrayed, wondering why she would do that to him. Back in reality, Arthur is once again in the asylum. Jackie informs him that Lee is here to visit. When they meet, Arthur asks her directly, did she lie to him? Lee admits it. Everyone tells a few lies, she says. I just wanted you to like me. She confesses she could have just written him a letter, but she felt so insignificant compared to him. I haven't done anything with my life like you have, she says. Arthur, taken aback, asks if she really watched the TV movie they made about him. She nods. I saw it 20 times. It was great. But then Lee drops another bombshell. She's pregnant. Arthur stares at her in disbelief, unable to respond. The next day in court, the prosecution calls Sophie, Arthur's former neighbor, to the stand. She recounts how he once broke into her apartment, though she never reported it to the police. When asked if that behavior was typical of Arthur or a sign of another personality, Sophie says she never really knew him. However, she admits to having a good relationship with Arthur's mother, Penny. Sophie reveals that Penny used to say Arthur was mentally disturbed. Miss Stewart then cross-examines Sophie. She asks if Arthur ever threatened her or her daughter. Sophie says no, Arthur never did anything violent. In fact, Penny used to say that Arthur wouldn't hurt a fly. Sophie continues, saying Penny told her a story she used to tell Arthur since childhood, that he came into this world to spread joy, which is why she called him Happy. But Sophie adds that Penny never actually believed in that story. She thought it was ridiculous. Sophie says that Arthur really believed he could make people laugh. She said he wasn't funny at all. As the courtroom chaos reaches a peak, a soft tune plays in the background, blurring reality as Arthur finally snaps. The room quiets just long enough for someone to whisper the truth, that Arthur had never even had a girlfriend. Overwhelmed, Arthur suddenly exclaims that he wants to fire his lawyer. I can't do this anymore, he says. And chaos erupts. The court session is adjourned, and Arthur is escorted back to the holding cell. Moments later, Lee visits him. She encourages his defiance, telling him that what he did was right, that the crowd supported him. Her words echo in his ears as he is taken back to Arkham Asylum. A radio broadcast reveals that despite opposition from both Miss Stewart and D.A. Harvey, the judge, reluctantly, has approved Arthur's request to represent himself in court. Upon his return to the asylum, Arthur is greeted like a hero. Inmates cheer wildly, creating a frenzy that forces the guards to intervene. Joker fever is spreading. The next day, Arthur walks into the courtroom dressed in his full Joker attire. His confidence is palpable. D.A. Harvey Dent calls the next witness, Gary Puddles, Arthur's former coworker. Gary nervously testifies that he saw Arthur murder another employee, Randall. But Arthur doesn't defend himself in the traditional sense. Instead, he mocks Gary. Tell me, Sir Puddles, is that your God-given name? The courtroom stirs. The judge warns him, I won't let you turn this into a circus, but it already is. Arthur presses on, pointing out how Randall was a bully and mocks the system that ignored him until he made noise. Loud, violent noise. You expect us to believe you saw me kill someone and didn't see me on the Murray Franklin show that night? Arthur asks. You didn't watch, didn't hear anything I had to say. He leans forward, voice intense. You think this isn't me? That someone else did those things? The truth is, no one even knew I existed. But look now, look around. What you've proven today, Mr. Puddles, is that you're just like the guards at Arkham. You think you can treat me like trash and walk away. And the Joker smiles. I'm free. I can go back to work, Arthur whispers, dazed, as soft music plays in the background. Gary, ever the timid coworker, tries to find his voice. You were the only one who never made fun of me, he says, his words tugging at Arthur's fractured heart. But the courtroom quickly dissolves into mockery again. Arthur ends with a smirk and a line, that's all, folks. As whispers of criticism fill the air, some say Arthur is walking straight toward the death penalty. A reporter asks him what he would do if released. Arthur glances at Lee, who begins singing softly, We're going to build a mountain from a little hill. In his mind, he performs the song with her again. He even imagines marrying her. But the fantasy is short-lived. When Arthur returns to Arkham Asylum, Jackie and the guards unleash their anger over being mocked on live television. They tear off his clothes, rip away his Joker makeup, and beat him brutally, screaming, that costume doesn't make you better than us. In the chaos, another inmate, Ricky, is strangled to death while Arthur, locked in his cell, listens in silence. On the final day of the trial, Lee arrives, dressed proudly. Judge Herman asks Arthur for his closing statement. Calmly, Arthur walks forward, sits close to the jury, and silently gathers his thoughts. Then, with raw honesty, he admits he planned to blame everyone else as the Joker, but now he cannot. The Joker, he says, was never real, just a mask to hide behind. He confesses to killing 6 people, including his own mother, and tearfully wishes he could undo the past. Disillusioned, many of his supporters leave the courtroom, Lee included. An hour later, just before the verdict, Arthur leaves her a voicemail, singing a haunting melody, begging her not to walk away, saying if she does, he'll have nothing left. The jury returns. One by one, the charges are read. Guilty, guilty, guilty is charged. The courtroom erupts. As guards attempt to escort him out, Arthur blacks out. Then, Chaos. A hole in the wall. Arthur wakes. He escapes. On the street, a few of his loyal supporters spot him. They throw him into a getaway car as gunshots echo behind them. Red light. Panic. But someone says, "It's okay. It's red." Arthur Fleck disappears into the madness once more. Arthur stares blankly ahead, his world crumbling. "There is no Joker," he said. "But for some, that was never true. All we had was the fantasy. And you gave up." Lee's words echo in his mind. He closes his eyes as soft music swells, the haunting lyrics of "With a Touch of Goodbye" filling the silence. Suddenly, applause. Police storm in and drag Arthur back to Arkham. Days pass. A guard informs him he has a visitor. On the way, a young inmate stops him. "Want to hear a joke?" Arthur nods. A psychopath walks into a bar and sees his favorite clown sitting alone. The boy begins, eerily calm. Arthur chuckles faintly, until the boy finishes. "How about I get you what you deserve?" With one swift move, the boy attacks. As Arthur bleeds out, the boy carves a grotesque smile into his own face, letting out a chilling laugh. He's not just another inmate anymore. He's become the Joker, and that's where this twisted sequel ends. Enjoyed this recap? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more epic movie breakdowns and hidden story gems. Drop a comment on what movie you want us to cover next. Thanks for watching.